Well, I think a lot of our history, culturally and politically, is local history. It's really what communities make of themselves. Many American orchestras were founded in a 20 or 30-year period, just really the decades preceding 1911 and just afterward. And I think the role of the community there is, in effect, to credential it by the founders of the orchestra. What does a real city need to have in order to make claims that it is a real city? And one of the things at the turn of the century, for many places, was an orchestra.
If you skip ahead now to let's say after the Second World War and moving into the 1950s, really 60s, I think what we began to see happen was that throughout the United States, there was, I think you could say, a movement to institutionalize the performing arts. Tremendous resource went into building our institutions, orchestra companies, theater companies, dance companies, supported by corporate support, foundation support, government support. I think it was part of the national agenda, frankly, and I think during that phase, the American orchestra built up a system of practices that were intended to professionalize the experience, raise the artistic standard, improve living conditions for American musicians, and our focus during this period was on the excellence and quality of the performance. Mm-hmm. And this was, I think, really the galvanizing idea about American orchestras for a very long time. And meanwhile, the world was changing, and our country was changing in terms of who lived in it, who lived in the neighborhoods our concert halls were in, who was populating our country, and what our sensibilities were about what it meant to be a nonprofit organization mm-hmm. in contemporary America. And I think with that change, we've seen a widespread shift in how orchestra resources and roles are being deployed now in their communities.
At the root of all of this, it's not just an expansion of what orchestras present, but even more fundamentally, what orchestras are. And I think that will require a gradual sort of shift in the way both we internally think about ourselves and audiences think about orchestras as well.
I think we would have to admit that as orchestras, we are culpable in having nurtured and fostered an air of, whether you want to call it mystery or, God forbid, elitism. We have fostered that, and yet now we are working to figure out how do we pull back from some of that and actually strip some of those barriers away.
And I think that if you're not accessible and you haven't figured out how to be relevant to whatever your community is without denigrating your art, but being true to your artistic integrity, but being a part of your community, whether that's virtually or in real environment, I think you will be no longer in existence.
The institutions and companies which embrace that and can tell their own story and can be shown to be experimenting and pushing innovation forward rather than standing still are the ones who are going to survive. But it's really exciting times. I think you can either be terrified by it or you can let go a little bit and see what happens.
Something like an orchestra is an institution. I mean, it takes quite a lot of cooperation to make it happen. I remember a visual artist friend said, man, y'all have a level of communication, a level of cooperation in your field that is unheard of. And it's true. I mean, just look at the amount of people that have to work together. It's incredible. There has to be an institution to support that, and it might not, be able to, change on a dime, but things are really changing, and I feel like, particularly here, and particularly West Coast orchestras have been amazing at really adapting to the kind of 21st century audiences. So I think it can happen. I think it is happening.